All right, well, welcome to another Bay Trail Confidential. I'm Rodney Paul, your host, and give me a second to start sharing our slides. And I want to just point out that we have brand new music for the show. That's Midnight Kitchen, who is a band that plays at the farmer's market in my neighborhood, and also members of the group came on my Haight Ashbury tour, and I'm just so glad that they made that music available. So I think I posted it. They're going to be playing soon at our farmers market. That's one place you can catch them. And one of the band members, their leader, Jeannie, is on the show, or she's in the audience. So maybe she'll throw some information into chat. I also want to encourage you, finish up taking that poll. I'm going to share the results with you guys in just a moment. I'll give you like 10 more seconds. Always fun to see where people are connecting from and what your experiences have been on the Bay Trail. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to stop. Let's see. Am I already sharing? Oh, maybe I closed the poll. If I did, did not everybody get to take the poll? Is that what's going on here? You guys can see that we had people from kind of all over the Bay Area, which is cool. And as always, more people hiking than biking, but not everyone can be a biker. And some of you have experienced Bayview Hunters Point, but some of you really have not been to any of these wonderful public spots there. And I think the show is going to make you want to go there and see some of these places for yourself. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And I want to first of all, tell you guys we are hosted by San Francisco City Guides. I got to get my poll out of my way. Hold on. Sometimes you get these little windows that block you. And thanks to everybody who donated to City Guides. We're a nonprofit. We've been around for a while, and we are doing a good job of recovering from the pandemic. And doing these Zoom programs was a big part of our nonprofit during the pandemic. Now we're doing a lot of in-person tours, and we can talk more about that later. Today's show is going to be really special. We're going to be talking about some great places in Bayview Hunters Point and kind of a history there that not that many people know. And I think it's really important that you guys hear about this. We're also going to be talking about this great artwork that's going to be going into India Basin Shoreline Park called Lady Bayview. And I believe in my mind that artwork very much ties in with the history we'll be sharing. And we have the artist, Raylene Gorum, who is commissioned to create that. I should tell you who all my guests are, and I should welcome them. So we are joined by Carol Bach of the Port of San Francisco. How are you doing tonight, Carol?
Great, thank you.
Very happy to have you. Arieann Harrison of the Marie Harrison Community Foundation. Arieann, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. I'm so happy to be doing this show with you. Jackie Flin of the APRI, A. Philip Randolph Institute of San Francisco.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all, and I'm so happy to be here to share a little bit about the community that I work in. So hi, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. And Kurt Grimes. And Kurt, I just want to say first, thank you so much. Kurt really helped connect me to a lot of people to make the show possible. How are you tonight, Kurt? You unmuted? Well, Kurt, we'll move on.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I was saying good evening. It's a beautiful evening in the Bayview tonight.
It is. It is. It's like one of these really nice spring days, huh?
Yes.
And then James Bryant, who was very involved in the shutdown of the PG&E plant. James, are you able to unmute? I know you're kind of in the midst of something.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm James Bryant. I'm with JBR Partners, formerly with the A. Philip Randolph Institute, San Francisco.
And then Raylene Gorum, our artist. Raylene, how are you?
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
So we always we show people, and I guess I didn't get everybody's Bay Trail credit, and I'm just going to apologize in advance, but we have a few. So we have Carol, your Bay Trail cred, showing where you've been on the Bay Trail. You live in the East Bay, and you've been to a lot of places in and around Oakland, in San Francisco. Kind of makes sense, the San Francisco part, since you work for the Port of San Francisco. And then Kurt, you also have very impressive Bay Trail cred. A lot of places in San Francisco. You said you've lived there for 43 years. I know you moved there as a very young child. But cool that you also get over to the East Bay. I like that. And then we have Ethel. Ethel's joining us from a place with not great connectivity. But Ethel, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Pleased to be here.
Great to have you. And then Lee Huo of the Bay Trail Project, who has been almost everywhere on the Bay Trail, but not quite everywhere.
Still trying hard, Rodney, but I'm excited about tonight's show. There's always so many stories across the Bay about how people open up shorelines to the public, and this one's a new one to me.
Yeah, and this is really about opening up shorelines, and this is mine. We won't belabor that. I'm still going to more places. I wanted to do some quick updates. These are going to be kind of quick, but first of all, many of you know there's a ferry service now running between Treasure Island and the ferry building. And for me, it was really cool because now I can ride my bike all the way to Treasure Island across the bridge. You can only do this, by the way, on weekends, because the connection between the bridge and the island is only open on the weekends. But then you take this ferry, it costs $5. It's like 10 minutes, and it's just so cool. I'm really thrilled about that. Also want to mention an event I'm going to be involved in called the Road to a Livable Climate, put on by 350.org. It's a fundraiser for them, but it's going to be a bike ride. They asked me to design a route that goes around the bay. And so we're hitting a lot of really great bay trail spots, including the places we'll be talking about today. And if you're interested, the link to this will be on my website and in the email I send to you guys tomorrow. And I just also want to mention, if you always wanted to go to the Naval Shipyard in Hunters Point, usually that's off limits. But at the end of this month, on May 1st, there will be open studios for the artists there. And that's actually how I met Raylene. Raylene was at the open studios last fall. Are you going to be back there this year, Raylene?
I don't think so. It's possible, but no plans as of yet.
Yeah, because Raylene's studio is actually in another Bay Trail location in Sausalito. But again, I will send this link in my email tomorrow, and it'll be on the website. But this is a great opportunity to see some fantastic artists and to get to the Naval Shipyard, which we hope one day will be open to the public. And then our friend Larry Rosenblum, who was a guest on this program very recently, he's going to be doing his own virtual program on behalf of the Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge on April 20th at 6 p.m. And it's going to be called, it's about the refuge, and it's going to be called Refuge to the Rescue, kind of the history of the Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge. Okay, but let's get to our main topic. This is something I've actually really wanted to do this show from the get-go. And the reason is I live in East Bay, but I used to work south of Market, and I would often bike over to Bayview Hunters Point just to see like what the shoreline was like there. And it's really been in transition in recent years. And we're going to be talking about some pretty cool things there. But one thing, well, here's an overview, and we're going to be talking about some of these places. So Heron's Head to the north. This is the site of the PG&E plant. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. And then the India Basin Shoreline Park actually goes along this whole area, but we're going to be talking about plans to greatly expand that park and the wonderful artwork that Raylene is working on there. We might talk about these other places, but that's not really what I want to focus on tonight. Here's another view of it. And so this is going to be part of the San Francisco Parks system. Heron's Head Park is operated by the Port of San Francisco. Wonderful, wonderful place. We're only going to really touch on it briefly on this show, but we want to encourage you to use it as a great jumping off point to go to the Hunters Point shoreline. And we're going to do a whole other show about Heron's Head Park because it's a wonderful place. But one of the things, when you go to where this PG&E plant was, and the PG&E plant was operational for most of the 20th century and was shut down in 2006. When you go there now, it's actually really nicely landscaped, and it's a little maybe hard to see in here, but they have these interpretive panels that tell the story of the plant, tell about its history generating power. And it talks about also the activism that led to the plant being shut down and the leadership in the community, the Bayview Hunters Point community, that ended up prevailing in having the plant shut down. And you even have, like here's something talking about what it was doing and how they added to it. And ultimately it was generating like 383 megawatt hours. It was a very powerful plant. Well, actually, but also the most polluting power plant in all of California. And this talks about the advisory committee that was set up in 2006. And then we get like a quote like this. And the thing about these quotes, they're from community activists, but they don't show any names. And I just found that really curious. And one of my goals was to find out more about like who were the leaders in the community that ultimately prevailed and had the plant shut down. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, because I found out that it's a story that's not very well known. Here's some more of those quotes that you will see walking around there. And they're good quotes from people, but again, who are these people? I would really like to know. If you want to visit this place, so it's right next, this is Heron's Head right here, and you can park in the Heron's Head parking lot and then walk on these promenades to get to, this is kind of the main area where those interpretive panels are. And this is the architect's kind of map of what they did there. A lot of really nice landscaping. And here's another view of it. It's actually really beautiful. It's kind of hard to believe that this whole power plant was there. Beautiful night scene. But this is what the plant looked like. And, so it was not a very nice looking plant. I'm sorry if I'm offending any plant architects. And also it was terrible for the residential community there and for birds and other wildlife. It was very polluting. We're getting some more views of it. And I think I'm going to just say a few more things before we start getting this history from people who experienced it firsthand. But here's another view of the plant. It was vast. And it had been operating for a while. And there were plans to do even more of this in that area. So here's a brochure from 1969 about more industry coming to that area. And then you see like the residential, like right next to all this industry in this artist rendition. Here's what it looked like originally. So where Heron's Head Park is now, and where the power plant would have been, was actually underwater. So this is fill that these things were built on. And here's another view of Heron's Head. This again would be where the power plant was. And then this is the early development of this area before the power plant. There's some kind of early industry in the early 20th century. I went to these maps in the San Francisco History Room, and this is so revelatory to see like how big the footprint of the plant was, and kind of shows you where all the things were. These were maps that were used for fire insurance. So it really tells you a lot of details. And I'm going to put some of these on my website so you can go and see them in more detail. But I think the most important thing is to see how close the housing was to the plant. So it's about 600 feet to the actual plant itself. And then just 50 feet away from some of these homes were these giant oil tanks. So this thing, the impact it had on the community there was really terrible. And they had very high rates of illness. And so now I really want to ask Arieann, we're going to talk about your mother, Marie Harrison, and her activism. And I imagine that you were very involved with that too. But, like how did they get started? And kind of what were some of the early stages of this effort to shut down the power plant?
Okay, so as a part of telling the story, we have to talk about where we've been and how we got to where we are now. Okay, the Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood in San Francisco is bounded by Cesar Chavez Street to the north, the San Francisco Bay to the east, and the city and county of San Francisco border to the south, US Highway 101 to the west. The neighborhood is home to approximately 800,000 people and more than 500 heavy and light industrial companies, retail stores, and commercial establishments. over half of the land in San Francisco that is zoned for industrial use in the Bayview Hunters Point. The neighborhood is home in some cases, in some areas, still home to a federal Superfund site in the Hunters Point Navy Shipyard. And also, when the uprising came from the community, the pollutant and unnecessary PG&E Hunters Point power plant, sewage treatment plants, and it handles 80% of the city's solid waste. There's 100 brownfield sites. Brownfield sites are abandoned, idled, underused industrial and commercial facilities where expansion or redevelopment is limited because of environmental contamination, 187 leaking underground fuel tanks. So, and that's just half of what I actually wanted to address. So there was a lot of health impacts that went along with our children, and the community rose up. It started with ordinary people from low income residents trying to find and struggle to find their voice and champion the health effects that were happening to the community. So a
Yeah.
part of that,
Go ahead.
a part of that is the big part of that was Tessie Esther. She was from the Mothers and Fathers Tenant Committee, and my mother, Marie Harrison. And she worked in collaboration with Green Action, and they started to educate community members, because before we were really advocating for better housing and a living environment in the units that we were segregated to. However, who had imagined that environmental justice and social justice were so closely interrelated?
Yeah, and it's something that really benefited everybody, like benefited the residents in that community. But our people that love the Bay, it's also good for them. I say people, of course, come first.
It's very good for people that love the Bay. They the beautification and the cleanup. There's still some things that need to happen. It's actually benefiting the community. I can see the beautiful spaces coming together. But I also see and notice that the people that if it wasn't for certain people that were uprising against these powerful industrial polluters, that space would not have came available for other entrepreneurs and other people that wanted to come in and solidify the community and utilize those spaces. As a part of that, I think that there's been people that have been in community meetings for years as stakeholders for that for that space. As soon as it got cleaned up, I'm glad to see that you have the right people on this call. I'm glad to see that you have APRI. I'm glad to see you have Jackie on this call, and all the additional residents that are on this call of the community. And for new people, we have to remember where we've been so we can appreciate the beauty of where we're going.
So like it was like a lot of different people were involved in this effort.
Yes,
and we're not going to be able to like talk about all of them, but the leadership came from, like your mother was key to the leadership, and she was tireless. Here's a picture of her.
I would like to mention a couple of names because it's taken community. There's a lot of people that are not mentioned on this list, but the people that I remember that were present were Tessie Esther, Monica Audrey, Sabrina Warren, Pamela Jackson, Connie Wilson, Darlene Flemings, Latrice Alexander, Lonnie, Dina Palmer, Ina Modine, Tiffany Bashil, Janice Hughes, Cherie Beard, Carl Crump, I think Jackie Germain and Janita Bilford, just to name a few people, but I can go on and on and on. We would be here all day. It
Yeah,
took
I
what,
mean,
but I'm
and-
what I'm trying to say is that, you know, when I am speaking, I know the part that my mother played, and I want people to remember that, but I also remember that there's no I in we. And it took all of the community to come together to make that happen.
yeah, and you know, just like to not put anybody's name on the panels telling the story to me is something, as someone who's a tour guide and I like to tell stories about San Francisco history, I definitely want to mention names, and especially, you know, these are people that you talk about speaking the truth to power. These are people who spoke truth to the power company, you know, like taking on PG&E, that is no small thing.
Precisely. So we can give an homage to the underdogs, right?
Yeah, and also and give thanks, because we all have benefited from this. And I say we because I'm someone who really has enjoyed going and visiting Bayview, Hunters Point, and I love Heron's Head. I love what's happening at the India Basin Shoreline, and just none of that would be anything like what it is if there was a giant PG&E power plant there. So we really need to give credit where it's due. Now we've got James Bryant. I know you weren't able to speak up before, but James, yeah, I believe this is you in this picture. Why don't you tell us a little bit from your perspective about what happened?
Well, about 2005, I was contacted by folks that worked for then Mayor Willie Brown, and he was concerned that we needed a person who could connect to many different groups of folks, unions, the actual Black community, business, and be able to come up with a plan to assist the community with a new thing called local hires. And what that meant was all the people that were living in public housing would now have this great chance to have a job, to work as laborers, operators, to work as carpenters, and all those opportunities was going to be put forth by none other than PG&E. And obviously people did not actually believe that would happen. But I must say that we actually created a lot, which includes City Build. A lot of people don't know that City Build actually cut its teeth here. But the challenge.
But James, tell me more about what is City Build?
City Build is a operational workforce development organization that is ran by OEWD and the city. And so what they do is they provide training for all different kind of construction opportunities. And actually they ended up developing into more than construction, but to get started, they started with this construction plan because when the power plant had been agreed to be taken down, now they needed a workforce, and that workforce was, basically sitting right next to the power plant. And the thought was, well, why don't we take this chance and move these, give opportunities for this low-income community. And I think it was somewhat of a success, as City Build is probably one of the most prominent workforce development organizations, not just in San Francisco, but California and maybe even the United States.
So it's great that that there were some jobs created to shut down the plant. I'd like to kind of go back though and talk about like what was the impact of having this plant operating? You know, like what were some of the things people were experiencing as a result of the plant?
Well, I think everybody knew that the you had a lot of folks that were ill due to as Tessie would call the particulates that were brewing out of the power plant and probably other mechanisms that was maybe originally in the area. And so I think the Department of the hospital department, I forget what they're calling now, they actually said that, Bayview Hunters Point was, the sickest area in town, and primarily because of its problems with, power plant and other, and remember, there was other operational problems that the Bayview Hunters Point had.
Like the shipyard would be a good example, but there was plenty of others.
And remember this, the Bayview Hunters Point sat on a big stack of serpentinite, which is natural asbestos. And so people didn't even know that when they were digging in the ground and the soil would get airborne, that would cause sickness to the residents.
Yeah. I want to call on Jackie. I think, Jackie, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think it's important to connect the fight to ensure that our community was safe and not continuing to experience many of these health impacts that came from the activities that were happening at the power plant, and even after the power plant was shut down, to really renovate that shoreline. The fight, along with realizing there was this huge opportunity to build some capacity for community by creating jobs, was very important to the community. And I think it was important to recognize that many families were suffering from high rates of asthma, high rates of cancer, high rates of, unfortunately, low birth. And it really, it was hard for people to listen and hear why it was so important for folks to understand. And, many of our champions who fought for this community have moved on, and they have unfortunately died, and they're very much could be connected to just living in the area. So not only was it important to shut down this power plant, but it was also important to build back some capacity in the community, build equity within, and bring community together in order to, be resilient and really own this space. So, Marie and Tessie and Dr. Espinola Jackson fought hard for this community because they knew the impact that we were all experiencing. And not only were they champions of change, they fought every day, and they not only did that, they passed the torch down to us as younger generation by education and just continually showing us leadership. Those were really important in not only changing what impacts we had, but as we move into the future, that shoreline still is going to undergo a significant amount of renovation. And I think it's most important that community stays the forefront of that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It's like it has a much brighter future, but we want to make sure that it really benefits the people who helped get that power plant shut down and are also the leading advocates for more environmental justice. And I did want to, so the people we really wanted to call out, the names that are not on the interpretive panels that really should be, we talked about Tessie, Esther, Marie Harrison, and Arieann is Marie's daughter. And then we have a couple of others, Espinola Jackson, I believe she's already been mentioned. And then Linda Richardson, and I love this quote from her. She said, there was, because PG&E wanted to replace the plant with a newer plant, which they said would be cleaner. They said the heart of the issue is why here? If this new plant is so clean, take it to the marina and tell the folks there you want to put up a cogeneration plant. And of course, there was no way they were going to put a giant power plant in the middle of the marina. I did want to, like, another perspective, Carol, if I could call on you, since you're involved with Heron's Head, what was it like in that part of India Basin before the power plant was shut down? How was that impacting the area around Heron's Head?
Yeah, well, obviously it was not very welcoming for public access. Heron's Head Park itself was fenced off from public access until the park was constructed and the wetlands were created in 1999. Before that, it was just a fenced off area that, of course, people did get into, but not necessarily for the best purpose. And yeah, it just that section between Heron's Head Park around the front of the PG&E plant just was not very hospitable. It didn't encourage people to come down and enjoy their waterfront. The plant was very noisy at times. It really was a visual and sort of psychological blight, I think, on people's ability to appreciate their waterfront.
Yeah, and I started going there about 10 years ago because I worked south of Market, and I would sometimes at lunch, if I needed a break, I would ride my bike out there. And I came to the Eco Center, which is what we're looking at Heron's Head. And I just thought, what a marvelous place. It was so kind of calming and idyllic. And it's just kind of hard to even imagine that power plant being there. And yet it was right next to where this all is now. So you're right. I mean, when you say it wasn't inviting, it really was a place that people avoided, I think. Let me call on Jackie. Go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, I'll just add that building that you see there, which is an educational center, was actually sort of built because of the fight that many of our leaders fought. So that was sort of a gift to say, here we are creating this educational center that's completely off the grid. It's a indoor classroom that has solar, that has a wastewater system that's self-contained. And it's really a model to show that you don't have to be reliant on any power grid or any water grid. But, it was a gift to say there has been harm done in this community, and we want to start to change that impact. And that's part of what's so challenging for us, is that people don't necessarily connect that history of why that building is even there. They just enjoy the building now that it's been built. It would be nice to have some interpretive storytelling about that on site for anybody that comes to visit, so that they really understand the meaning of the building. And if you know anything about our community, there is historically the Big Five. They were women that really fought hard to create more education and opportunity in Bayview Hunters Point. And, Mama Tessie and Marie Harrison were, sort of, they come from long roots of advocacy, long history of fighting for social change in the community. And again, I think it's imperative that we continue to fight to make sure that our stories get told.
Yeah, I want to be helping facilitate that story being told, and I'd love to be involved in telling the story myself. In fact, we are talking about doing in-person walking tours of these areas, especially with the India Basin Shoreline Park opening up. The incredible expansion of that. Carol, once you, I'd love to hear you jump in. What would you like to add?
I just wanted to thank you, Jackie, for bringing up that observation. That's a really important point, that the Eco Center was kind of a counterpoint to PG&E. And also the Eco Center was built by a community-based organization called Literacy for Environmental Justice, which is still active in the Bayview. And Literacy for Environmental Justice was an offshoot of the Southeast Alliance for Environmental Justice, which you've showed their logo a few times, was very active in advocating for closure of the plant.
Yeah. And it's funny, like someone like me, I just roll in on my bike and I don't know any of the, it's a superficial way of experiencing a community. But as you kind of look beneath the surface, you learn like a very rich history. Like we can learn so much from these activists that we're talking about. And I want to go back
I'm struggling to raise my hand and on my
go ahead,
phone.
Arieann.
But I would like to add that I think that, I think that Bayview has always been beautiful, and it's been conversations and dialogues have been shared over the years about, people's interpretation of what they wanted to do to build there. But I think this is a really golden opportunity with all of the richness and the talent and everything that resides here, from the artists to the singers to the dancers, to the people that actually do the work in the community, that have invested in several different ways in their contributions to all of our growth. I thought that, in my mind, how I envision what they would do with Bayview would be to set the standard of kind of like an environmental justice plus that would also equate, clean energy and all these different factors of new science and creating that kind of space, instead of, when I'm thinking about stuff that's been done that's been revolutionary, they usually incorporate those kind of things like in different countries and stuff like that. And I would like to see something resemblant of that effort right here in our community. And I think that what I struggle with too is that people have these awesome, incredible ideas, which I fully support. Most of the things that people want to do and see happen in the community, I fully support that. The only things that I struggle with is health and the health impacts in doing things the right way. Because if we're not finished yet, we're on the road to reaching and championing the success that we want to see, but we just don't want to leave another toxic legacy. So we could start with the build out of what we've already accomplished as a community, and to make it even better for the people that are more fluid and all that kind of stuff that are coming in to the community. Education is key, because if they know what's already there, then they'll see the sense in doing the full cleanup, and why stop at a certain space and then keep it going so everybody can increase the value of their property space and know that it'll be a healthy environment for their children and their animals. We just want clean air, water, and land like everybody else,
Yeah, and I just say amen. Like this is good for the residents of Bayview Hunters Point, but it's also good for those of us who love the Bayfront. That this is this is now a wonderful place to visit. Most of it now, like we've been saying, the Naval Shipyard is off limits because it is still terribly polluted. It's got radioactivity, and I would love to be able to get access to that area. It's really you get beautiful views. You're on the bay. Let's not stop. The other thing that's worth mentioning about that power plant is, that was an oil burning power plant. It was putting carbon into the atmosphere, which again is like ruining the future for everyone. So to me, Arieann, your mother is a great hero. It's a great legacy that she has. And I'm very grateful to her and to these other women that we're recognizing tonight.
I'm going to say thank you for allowing me to share this space. Thank you for paying homage to my mom and to all the powerful women that me and Jackie were raised up under. You know, I had in 2020, actually May 5th, you know, when my mom passed away, I had been approached by the Bay Area Air District, which came up, said they had an idea to do their first environmental academic scholarship based off my mother's work. And I said, awesome, great, let's do it, you know, because one thing that I feel that needs to be brought to our community and be embraced is that there are other economic opportunities that have to do with the environment. We need to start seeing that marginalized communities that were isolated and not invested in, there's opportunity for our kids to grow into those industries of work is very well founded. I believe that creating those bridges into those industries and having people from CARB and all these different, the EPA and different spaces come into our environment instead of coming in to talk us out of some stuff. We need to start integrating into those services and getting their very well paying jobs that the opportunity has not even been presented to our children. These kind of jobs are available and accessible to them. So as a part of the Marie Harrison Community Foundation, Inc. having the academic scholarship that's going to be paying $5,000 per high school student that wants to go do an internship and also go into a higher level of education. I think that is an awesome place to start. Therefore, creating Marie Harrison Community Foundation, Inc. for social and environmental justice, because I believe that in the communities that we come from, that they both go together. There cannot be one without the other, especially in our circumstances. You know, like I said, I'm going to say again, I'm so very happy that you had the forthwith to ask about those quotes on those signs, in the signs that are there with no faces that actually go along with that messaging. Because if we don't get to tell our history and our story, someone else will tell it for us.
Yep. Well, thanks, Arieann. And I'm going to call on James, and then I do want to move on and talk a little bit about India Basin Shoreline Park and some real exciting stuff happening there. So go ahead, James.
No, I just wanted to say, and it took a unique gathering for this movement. It was different pieces of movement that allowed all these different folks to come together and sort of mesh, and for the first time in the Bayview's history, there was something that we could all agree on, and that was a shutdown the Hunters Point power plant, and that's what made this effort so powerful.
And is this picture is that like the shutdown right there?
Well, so when I was asked to help put a team together with PG&E, they said, well, this is going to be hard getting people to, come out on this. And so my first venture out was, we absolutely need this. And every household that I went to said, we're here to support you. Let's shut this power plant down and let's figure out how we make this community, safe. And the most important thing that the community was missing, and actually all of San Francisco, was jobs. Remember, in 2006, nobody was working. The construction industry had collapsed in San Francisco. So this was a great opportunity, to pump, some revenue into the community, get people to start working different kind of jobs, and to combine a community. I don't know if Carol remembers, but when we ended up having the circus out here, in this space after everything was cleaned up, the crowd was so, it was such a natural interconnection of people of all colors, of all backgrounds, of all races, that I said, my God, this is what the Bayview had to, move forward with. And then, and then things slowed down a little bit. And I'll go on and we can go to the India Basin. But I wanted to throw that in there because, you just don't understand how easy it was to bring people together on a unique point of healthiness, making this community healthy, making this community wealthy, making, folks get along together. It was the first time.
It was a long time coming, PG&E had been there for a long time and they had thought they were going to build another plant. But yeah, here we have you and I believe Supervisor Sophie Maxwell's in this photograph and Linda Richardson and some dude from PG&E. And you guys, I guess looks like you guys are turning off the plant. So that's pretty cool.
That was the day. That was the 15th of May, 2006. I know an exact day. And that was the day that you showed that other picture that Tessie was celebrating about. That was the day that it officially was closed down.
So that ought to be a holiday in Bayview, Hunters Point, May 15th. I will be thinking about, maybe I'll even try to visit on May 15th. So this is the exciting new park that's coming to India Basin. And this is funny because this is an artist rendition, but it's actually a little inaccurate because we're going to be seeing that this pier here is not going to have this design on it. It's going to have something I think much more appropriate for our talk tonight. And Kurt, you shared this with me. This is information about this project, and I know a lot of people in the community are involved in the construction effort. Jackie, why don't you go ahead and unmute?
I just wanted to highlight the India Basin Shoreline Park project because it is actually adjacent to the former power plant. And what's really important about the effort that the Recreation and Parks Department is putting into this shoreline is really trying to make, some contiguous shoreline park space, some nice green open space along that shoreline to be able to connect these wonderful parks that we have from the southeast all the way to the Embarcadero. What I think is important to know, which is different about this project, is, it's adapting and learning from many lessons that were learned through that effort at the power plant. The goal is to really build out this space so it becomes a destination location for folks all over the community and for everybody that's already come out to enjoy that space. We love that space. We love this portion of the shoreline. And not only will it change in terms of there's going to be some clear efforts to clean up those brownfield impacts that happened on site. Because again, there's a lot of industrial history to what happened at that shoreline. And many folks don't even know that back in the early 1800s, there were small boats that were built here that served all of the bay, which is great history. But, as we move forward, we recognize from a lot of what Tessie and Marie fought for, which was not only cleaning up the shoreline to a standard in which anybody else would want to raise their family, but adapting to climate as well, right? In 10 years, this shoreline might look vastly different. And it's important to make sure that we continue to have these conversations so these shorelines are not only beautiful for the existing community, but also adaptable as we continue to move forward. And, again, so many lessons learned through the efforts that many of the leaders in our community brought forth and wanted to make sure that they didn't just leave without a legacy. They left with truth talkers that are here today so that we can share this story and continue to build for this community that loves this space so much.
Yeah, and I loved what you said about connecting it all to the, you can basically go all the way from the Golden Gate Bridge to Heron's Head Park right now into this Hunters Point shoreline, but this will extend it even further. And then eventually we're hoping that we're going to get access to the Naval Shipyard and all the way to the southern border of San Francisco.
I wanted to interject and say thank you, Jackie, for saying that I can appreciate, because with climate justice, the probability of sea level rise is super high, and I'm hoping that they use the current science in their projections when they're cleaning up and making these spaces to protect the land and the influx of the sea into the land, because it's very important that they take that into account while they're doing their projections.
Yep, I do. Let's keep moving. I want to kind of get to, and oh, by the way, you were talking about the shipbuilding here, and there are some old historic buildings that were part of all that I think are going to be renovated. But this is kind of what we have to look forward to. This is going to be a really special place. I know we always get people on the show asking about like kayak and other boat access, and I believe that will be part of the India Basin Shoreline Park. So it'll be part of the
It is absolutely a part of the future plan for many of the amenities that they'll be building into the park. We saw some historic photos of sort of the dilapidated buildings. And I think it's interesting to know that this is one of the only sides of town that we have really great weather, but limited water access. And so right now you could actually launch a kayak there when we have high tide, because the tides are definitely a part of, we're sort of in shallower waters at India Basin. But you kind of have to, it's sort of not exactly the right type of launch for kayaks right now. And, here we are with a huge opportunity to build several piers that will be on that shoreline, address some of the longstanding existing issues that still, PG&E is not gone. There's still a huge substation that impacts our community every day, that actually houses, a good 70% of the power that serves the majority of the community. And so, it's important that, again, as we look forward to the future, that, these spaces remain sacred spaces for our community. And, we're hoping to see this future as well. And this park project is one in which, it's great to have folks come in and enjoy this space from all around. But I think it's also important that when they get there, they know exactly what community they're in, they know the history, and they can celebrate and appreciate that history just as much as we do.
Yeah, I'm really hoping we have walking tours, and I would love to be a part of that. In fact, I don't think we need to wait for this park to be built to have those. I think we could do those very soon. So I really want to move now. Here's like some of our takeaways for Bayview Hunter Point. That if you want to go to the power plant site, you can either access it from Heron's Head or from India Basin Shoreline Park. And the India Basin Shoreline, it has paved access paths, but there's very little parking there. So Heron's Head is probably your better bet if you're going in a car. Although it is more like crushed gravel between Heron's Head and the Hunters Point shoreline. So if you're on any kind of mobility device, it might be a little more challenging, but it's fairly level. Not a lot of good bus access here. There's a Muni 44 bus that'll get you fairly close to the site. The 3rd Street light rail leaves you a fair distance away. So if you don't mind walking a little less than a mile, that's certainly fine. But it's going to be probably a lot of people driving and biking to get there. I'm going to put all this information out on our website, so it's available for you. I'm going to skip ahead to Lady Bayview. We're not going to talk about these other places, but let's talk about Lady Bayview. And Raylene, very happy to have you with us to talk about kind of something really uplifting, I think. this sculpture that, well, I guess you and I always have trouble figuring out what to call this thing, right?
Right. It's not a mural because it's not on a wall. It's not a sculpture because it's not 3D, but it is a 5,000 square foot art piece going to be made out of concrete, lithocrete, on a pier. So it's unique. I don't know, a large I think you can see it from when you fly in and out of SFO, and you'll be able to see it from Google Earth. I think it's going to be one of the biggest pieces in San Francisco, but I got to figure out what to call it.
Yeah, so it's I mean, I don't know, it's almost like it's not a mosaic, right? Although some of it is sort of like a mosaic.
Mosaic would be perhaps closest. It's not, that's probably the closest. It's made out of decorative concrete. So there will be colorized concrete with colored glass inflected into it. And it's created with stencils and yeah, so not a traditional mosaic, but listeners, after you hear about this, if you have any ideas, chime into the chat.
She is what she is, right?
She is what she's in.
So yeah, so it's about 100 feet from top to bottom. And then within Lady Bayview, what are we looking at? What are some of these like we see these little, they look like F's.
Right. So I approach this artwork, and it's when you do public artwork, well, at least when I approach public artwork, I want people to have a lot of avenues to access it. And I think about it on a lot of layers. So there's a lot of stories and particular histories from Bayview embedded in Lady Bayview. As well as I started thinking about how you view this. So, some folks will be entering from the shoreline, as you say, on their bikes or walking, and we'll see her, on foot. And other people will be accessing her from Innis Boulevard, which is a little bit raised up. There's some staircases and wonderful things going on as the park reaches the street. And then there's a lot of the hill ascends behind it, and there's a lot of residential views from up there. So from this, we're looking like what you would see from above, like from a residence, and then a little bit lower would be like from the street level. So from that level, you're seeing this kind of protective guardian figure, Lady Bayview, holding at her center is kind of this. The concrete guys call it the universe, but it's the sky element. I think of it as the sky and the universe, or like, this relationship between the sky and the water, and, where all things are possible. And the swirling line patterns around her body, if you will, are actually wind barbs. So they are used by sailors to navigate, and they tell you the direction and speed. So as you can, if you're really close, you can see those, and I think that the pattern helps to suggest wind and water movement. But I also hope that users some people might meditatively walk around in that kind of pattern, or it might inspire impromptu dance or gatherings. I kind of leave that open-ended. And then within that swirling pattern are ships. You can kind of see the white, thicker figures there. And those ships speak to the maritime history of Lady Bayview. So there's some of her elements. Yeah. And so I wanted to tell a lot of stories at once. And like I said, give a lot of access points to the artwork. The ships, I think, when I start a research project, an art project, I do a lot of research. And there's just so much here. It's so much to unpack. But one thing that struck me, and this is what Arieann spoke to earlier, is that the Bayview is a beautiful and very gifted place. It is warm weather. People have been drawn to that area I mean, the Ohlone used it as a wonderful, like their summer site. It has deep waters, it has tidal marshes, it has fresh water, warm weather, protected from the fog, good fishing. And so over the course of time, obviously the natives were displaced. It's been a series of immigrants and people applying, making their livelihood in the Bayview with this working boatyard, and the Chinese shrimping villages have been there since like 1870 until they were burned down in 1939. And then the Germans the Germans were there, Scandinavians, the British, of course, then the Navy came, and then there was a huge population, a whole migration of African Americans who came for the war effort, and really.
And you had family members that were part of that, right?
Yeah, well, they didn't build the ships, but yeah,
But they migrated to the Bayview.
Yeah, they were part of this displacement from the Fillmore to the Bayview. My grandparents are interracial and couldn't get married. Just side note. Sorry about my cat if you can hear him. He's very vocal in the background, but so it was illegal for interracial marriages until 1948 in California. So they got married in 1948 and moved around a lot. My grandfather was a jazz man and booked a lot of stuff at the jazz workshop. And they called the Bayview home in the 50s, and they had 6 kids and we're always trying to raise rent parties. And so all the memories from that time that I hear are all like joy and music and, making it happen. But as I dug into the history, like as I researched the project, the site and this history over time, I saw a lot of displacement over and over again, from the Native Americans to the San Francisco had slaughterhouses all over, and then after the gold rush, they moved them to the Bayview. And that seemed like it was actually, they moved into Mission Bay first, and then they moved them to the Bayview. And then the Bayview, them being there and polluting the water became this whole nuisance. And then actually the Chinese shrimping village got kind of blamed for that after being there for 70 years, and their settlement, village livelihoods were burnt down pretty dramatically by the health department in San Francisco. And then the Navy came in, and the Navy also launched Little Boy, the atomic bomb, from there, and brought all the ships back that had contaminated radiation.
From Operations Crossroads.
Right, and exactly, and then cleaned it up, and then had that be a part of the soil and embedded it into the asphalt, and kids were playing with that. And it was heartbreaking, but I would say that the shining light of what I came across were all these advocates for the community, like the Big Five, the Bayview Five, and all the ladies, continuously, like the Arieann's mother, and actually the Big Five. I want to say there's a lot more than 5, and it's disputed who's the 5, and everybody's got a different report. So it takes a village, and so I wanted to honor that strong advocacy within the community, because I felt that the site just, taking that in, night after night, reading and researching and talking to folks, I just thought we need some blessings on this site. We need, and the park itself, the design and the vision for it is pretty tremendous. And I wanted the artwork to speak to the history, but also kind of like every seafaring culture, which most of them, are on Earth, have a protective deity, spirit, guiding figure, even, not religiously. Like you look at New York has Lady Liberties out there holding, the peace and this, this protective guardian spirit and just that serenity. And so I wanted to bring that element in. And she's inspired by, the Big Five. And, I learned, in public art, you can't necessarily pick one, and it's not really about one particular woman, although it's that strong, guiding, especially the African American female spirit that continues to this day. So that's where I came from in this artwork. And I will just say one thing I found reading through my notes today is that even in 1937, there were a couple of females advocating for the community to clean up this Butchertown situation, and they were like, yeah. So this has been going on for a long time, and it continues, and the work is never done. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, Arieann, I hope you're okay with this. I think I will think of your mother when I see this, that your mother made this pristine shoreline possible with her hard work.
I think
Yeah.
I really, want to, I want to applaud the artists. I think that it is a beautiful concept, and also thank you. I'm snapping my fingers because you did not forget about the Ohlone Indians. Thank you. I really appreciate you mentioning them. I've done some collaborative projects with that indigenous population. So I think it's a a concept that embodies all all of the powers and the energies of woman or lady warriors that are in the community. So yeah, it's beautiful.
So I'm gonna move on, but we're gonna come back to all this. I want to kind of wrap up the official part of the show and then continue the conversation. And I especially want to continue the conversation about the power plant. Here's the takeaways for India Shoreline Park. It's kind of in progress. There's a lot of construction going on. I know, Jackie, that APRI is involved in making sure that the community gets jobs that are related to this.
Yeah, and actually our work is actually going to go beyond jobs, because jobs is something we've heard for many, many years. And there's no doubt that our community actually has the highest unemployment rate across the city. So creating pathways to sustainable jobs is definitely a priority, not only for our organization, but for the community. But as we continue to invest in that shoreline, our organization is really fighting to ensure that every investment coming into that shoreline, every dollar is being reinvested into the existing community, and really, again, celebrating the history of all the folks that have struggled and really made San Francisco as beautiful as it is as a city. Get recognized for that work. And Raylene didn't get a chance to share about what community process we went through in order to identify and select her. And we were so fortunate to find an artist that had a true connection to the Bayview Hunters Point, that really could understand how we celebrate the history of all our community leaders. And, again, I also really appreciate not only the artwork, but the concept around how she came up with the idea. And I know she heard from so many different voices through that community process, because we got to celebrate the history, and we can't forget that there were boats there, and we can't forget about the Chinese shrimpers. These were things that I think were hard to create this really tangible vision, but she did the work to learn the history, to connect those pieces, really listen to community. And she was selected by folks that are also from the community that heard her initial proposal and thought about what could really resonate with community. And we're just so fortunate to have her come in and again, learning from what we've gone through in the past, we want to make sure that community continues to stay a voice on this project. And we're going beyond jobs. We're going to include history, arts and culture, transportation and connectivity. Someone mentioned, you mentioned how difficult it can be to get to that location. We're actually working with the MTA to incorporate a community-wide shuttle system. So it'll not only get you around to this park and around the community, which is so important to not forget as you come to this beautiful park, but it will also connect to the main veins of transportation like the bus routes and the 3rd Street line. We're also making sure we educate youth as we move forward, because I know, Arieann and I can't do this forever. James Bryant has passed the torch over to me, and I'm hoping to make sure that before I leave, I work with my community to help build continuous leaders to come into this work. And so, while we have had such a traumatizing history, and while it has been extremely challenging, for me, it's often very, inspiring to look to the future and see, what impact we can all do before we leave this earth, because, just an ode to all these leaders that helped build a pathway for me. I'm inspired to continue to do the same.
Yeah, and you mentioned Raylene doing the research about the Big Five and others in the community. Well, I've been talking to Raylene for quite some time now, and I did another show with her a couple months ago, and her research made me really want to do my homework and learn my history of Bayview, Hunters Point. So I think I need to give her some credit for pointing me in your direction. And I'm so glad I did, because it's wonderful to learn these stories and understand like why we have this much better future for this part of the bay. We usually have a contest on the show, and we give away a set of map cards. And Serena Seaton, who is in the audience, she always sends those map cards. And I always let her pick a favorite place on the Bay Trail to highlight each month. So she wanted to highlight the Berkeley and Albany Bay Trail sections. She particularly mentioned biking on them, but they're good for biking or hiking or lots of other things. And so this is kind of this stretch between Berkeley and Albany, and there's this new section of Bay Trail that opened up, I guess it's been a couple of years now, but really connects it all and makes it really nice. Oh, and then this is a brand new park that actually just opened within the last month. Brickyard Cove, which is part of the McLaughlin East Shore State Park. Really, really nice. And maybe we'll have to do a whole show about that at some point. But we actually didn't have anybody enter our contest for the map cards. And so I had the idea that it might be nice to give the map cards to Arieann to honor your mother's legacy. So Serena will be sending you a set of these map cards. They're really terrific. It's got a card for each, there's 25 different cards for sections of the bay, and it's really a great way to enjoy other parts of the Bay Trail. But of course, you have the best part of the Bay Trail in your backyard, and Bayview Hunters Point, if you ask me. It's a very special place. Man, I did not do a great job of filling out this photo art credits. We have some others that I need to add there. I will put them on my website. In particular, there's a guy named Tom Fitzgerald who has wonderful photographs of the Hunters Point Shoreline Park, and all credit to him. We always play at the end of our show, Happy Trails. So I'm going to key it up, music by my good friend Jason.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you.
Rodney, you all are too young to remember that movie.
All right.
Until then, who cares about the clouds that we're together?
I don't remember when I first heard it.
Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you until until we meet again, until we meet again.
And I'm going to mention just a couple of things before we wrap up. I want to say some thank yous, and particularly Eva Hopkins with A. Philip Randolph Institute is the one who connected me to Kurt Grimes, who connected me to Jackie Flin, and got this whole thing going. And Eva, I don't know if you're out there, but you know, you were really encouraging of the show. So thank you very much. I always want to say thank you to my wife, who gives me lots of advice that makes this show better. Midnight Kitchen, they were the ones who played the music in the slideshow at the start. And boy, that I just thought it was really great with the slides. So way to go, Jeannie and Midnight Kitchen. And then Jason Myers is just singing Happy Trails, which James, sounds like it stirred some memories for you. So this is the point of the show where we let everybody who wants to unmute. Give me a second to do that. And you can ask questions, you can make statements. Our guests are, you know, if you guys want to add anything that we didn't talk about already, you're welcome to do that. And I do want to just want to mention one thing from chat, which is this is for Raylene, that somebody suggested maybe we could call the Lady Bayview a floral, not a mural, but a floral. What do you think of that?
Oh, I didn't say it out loud in my head. I saw that. And now I just put it together. I like it.
Floral. So let's think about that.
Floral. All right.
Who else wants to jump? I bet you some of our guests want to jump in and maybe add a few things.
I think that would be awesome. I just wanted to leave you guys on this note. Like, thank you very much for letting me share this space. I think the projects checks are awesome. You know, and I look forward to the cleanup, the full cleanup of the whole entire shipyard, that, you know, for more beautiful projects to come forth. And also, I would want to give you a gift. I would like to have you connect with Mary Radcliffe over at Bayview National Black Newspaper, that can give you so much information and also give you some actual facts and different things of that nature, a whole lot of stuff that you would probably be blown away by, you know what I mean?
That would indeed be a gift. I think I would have a ball going through all that. I love the San Francisco History Room. I love I love kind of going back and seeing all the artifacts of history.
Yeah, I think, you know, she has some stuff that definitely is museum worthy, you know?
Well, I want to learn more about your mother too. You know, I'm really,
there is loads of information. And I would say really start there. There's also stuff that goes way back. This in the Examiner, the Chronicles, in the Guardian, and you know, in some magazine stuff. But I would really want you to go to the archives for their Bayview newspaper, or even if I can arrange a time for you to meet with Mary Radcliffe, and because she loves showing that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
oh, I think I would have a great time. I would be very honored to meet her. And you and I have not met in person. I hope we can do that.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. Like, I would really want to see the faces. The last thing I want to say, the faces to address to the comments, and also having an accurate account of everything that took place is extremely important. That's why we want you to meet Mary Radcliffe, and also go to the archives of the Bayview National Black Newspaper, so you can. It's a wealth. It's like a gold mine of information. You know.
Yeah. There's just nothing. There's nothing better than looking at like old newspaper articles and old maps. That's kind of like my thing these days.
Cool.
I had a really good time. I mean, it's kind of horrifying to see what the plant looked like and how it fit into the community, but also kind of fascinating.
Well, what I'm actually excited about too is, it's one thing to say that we've had all these health impacts, the highest rates of respiratory disease and cancer, but it's a different aspect to bring the science to that equation. So I'm interested to see and very inspired to see where we go from here when putting the science together with the evidence that we've been carrying around our bodies for a very long time.
Yeah. I see some of our guests need to leave, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining the program and helping me put this together. So it isn't just like we show up and do this thing on Zoom. You guys met with me, you shared photographs, you shared your stories, and I've always wanted to know this stuff about Bayview Hunters Point. And I feel really privileged to be able to talk to you about this. So thank you.
Thank you for letting me be genuinely me, and to take an honest approach that set right with my spirit.
Well, I think we need more of that. We need we all benefit from hearing these stories.
Okay.
So Arieann, thank you. Anybody, is Paco, are you still out there? We usually get Paco chiming in.
Oh, Rodney.
What'd you think? What'd you think of tonight's show, Paco?
Yes, it was very engaging. And all the best to Raylene and some of our presenters for this. And Denise has a friend with Richie also, Denise Sullivan.
Yeah, there is my friend Richie Unterberger is a rock historian, and has a lot of he talks a lot about a lot of different types of music, including some of the great Black musicians. I have to talk to him about Bayview Hunters Point music history, because I know there's a lot there. Other thoughts?
Oh.
One last thought.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
The the trail for on the backside of the old power plant is got enough space to have music events. Maybe we should start, since no one is really taking care of that property, maybe we should put a team together and start taking care of it, and include maybe some Sundays with music.
I think it's great. Sundays with music, and like I said, James, I would love to start talking about doing some in-person walking tours of the area with you, and get some of this like history while we're looking at, like it's still kind of, you kind of wonder what was where. It's kind of hard. Look how beautiful this site is, and it's just hard to believe that terrible power plant was there. And you, of course, were very involved in that cleanup effort. So, I mean, that's got to be a good feeling to see it looking so
It's
much
not
better.
done yet. Remember the current grid is still not been remediated underneath. So when they put a new grid in, they got to go back and clean up the old grid.
So I know there's going to be taking that distribution center and putting it indoors, right? There's going to be other things happening. I'm probably not using the right terminology, but there's going to be more work there, right?
Yes, there is. So they're going to build a substation over in the, the north, it's across the street from the plant. They're going to build a new substation and then take out the old substation. So, I think the vision is that this land is actually cleaned up to a livable level. People don't even realize that. That's how much work was done on that site. And it could, someday be, I don't know, you would hate to have a whole lot of housing on it, but it could be.
Well, I hope, personally, I hope it's public space, because I always love public space. So great. Hey, Raylene, I forgot to ask, what is the timeline for Lady Bayview? I've seen a lot of people in chat are very excited about it.
Yes, so I just touched base with the Arts Commission, and they said that, well, she's out to bid right now, which means that the whole park, there's a whole construction document set that they put out to contractors, and they had a meeting last month to kind of answer questions on that, and they expect the bids to come back this summer, and they'll select, a contractor for the park, and then probably a separate one just for the art concrete for Lady Bayview. And then hopefully spring into construction, this year, and in 4 or 5 years, the park will be done and Lady Bayview will be ready to party.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that party, and maybe I'll have a Bayview confidential table on certain weekend days on Lady Bayview, just kind of hanging there.
Yeah, I'm gonna arrive by ship, so.
You're arriving by ship. I'm coming by bike,
Yep.
and I know we'll have
Perfect.
lots of other ways of people getting there, I think.
I don't know what the hell is this beating on this wall. I don't know.
Other thoughts? Anyone else want to jump in with questions? I did not do a great job.
Adventures is coming up, Rodney.
This is true. I am doing an art program on Monday. It's going to be about the Taube Auerbach exhibition at SF MoMA. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to have a panel discussion.
I'm so excited, Rodney.
Yeah, I'm always excited. I get to talk about the stuff that I'm most interested in. I'm also excited about the dog behind you, Paco. Whose dog is that?
That's my cousin's dog. It's a Yorkie.
It's a Yorkie? And is it
Yorkie.
yours?
No, my cousin's dog in Oregon, Portland.
Ah, okay. It's an Oregonian dog. And we've got Larry Rosenblum here. Larry, I did plug your program coming up on April 20th. Anything you want to tell us about it?
Well, I was not here at the beginning, so I didn't hear what you said. So
I just said
you mentioned,
I mentioned it's April 20th, 6 to 8 p.m. and it's
Yes.
called Refuge to the Rescue.
yes. So it's about the Don Edward San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge in the South Bay. And I called it Refuge to the Rescue because not only has it rescued wildlife, which all the national wildlife refuges do, but it has rescued us as human beings in a sense, both in terms of restoration. It has rescued us from things that we now consider improperly done around the edge of the bay, and it helps to rescue us from making similar mistakes in the future.
Which is kind of, I think, is a good connection to our topic tonight. Bayview Hunters Point is also, it's a refuge for human beings, right? First and foremost.
Yes, I was thinking of comparisons as some of your presenters were talking about the history. And certainly the situation in the South Bay is very different. But still, there were, mistakes made that affect people in that area. And so it's sort of the same kind of thing of trying to recover from those.
Yeah, somebody asked, there's a question in chat, is there a wetland restoration aspect to the Bayview Hunters Point? And Carol left, but I believe that there's things going on at Heron's Head. There's actually some work that's being done now or soon. It's going to be, they've always wanted it to be, habitat restoration. I know there'll be more of that, and I don't know, I can't speak to India Basin Shoreline Park, but I expect that'll be an aspect of it too. Raylene, would you happen to know if they're
think there's definitely a restoration of waterfront access with the pier and a ways coming in, but all like the rendering of Lady Bayview that's kind of got, you can see the marsh is it curves around to the northeast up here. Whereas right now, actually, they've already broken ground and are doing like toxic remediation right now because it's such a, no surprise, toxic site. It's been a boatyard for 130 years. But yeah, there's marsh restoration as a part of it.
Yeah, cool. I wouldn't expect them to leave that out. I put these slides in for Yosemite Slough, and I didn't, and I decided we wouldn't talk about it, but that is another exciting place that's very close to all this. It's just on the other side of Hunters Point. And we'll get to that. We'll get to all this stuff on another show. Does anybody else want to add anything? I know we're going a little late here, but it was a really important topic, and I don't know if it was obvious, but I was really blown away by what I learned talking to Arieann and James and others. Well, I think maybe we'll just wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I'm really particularly grateful to our guests for joining us, and really look forward to being back here next month with another Bayview Confidential. In the meantime, I hope you all get a chance to get out there and enjoy this beautiful weather on our amazing San Francisco and San Pablo Bay.